So there comes a time in every society's existence when we have to question what is enough and what is too much. Now, what do I mean by that, guys? What do I mean by that? Tyler's going to hop into us getting real.
For many of those who don't know, if there's any of you out there, the film version of the Broadway smash hit Hamilton made its debut on Disney Plus this past weekend. The musical, which features a trailblazing cast that utilized racially conscious casting, chronicles the life of Alexander Hamilton and what led up to his duel with Aaron Burr that claimed his life. It's recently, well, not recently, it's kind of something that's been around since the musical began, but it has come under fire, not only due to its casting of people of color in white roles or as white characters, but also for the fact that it downplays or doesn't really mention the fact that the people involved owned slaves and kind of painted the founding fathers in an incredibly positive light. Hamilton himself never really owned slaves, but he did help his wife's family in their trading of them. This has led to many calling for the show to be canceled and hating on Disney Plus for promoting such a show and using the hashtag cancel Hamilton. Is this too far, Greg?
Well, first of all, let me go off by saying I've never seen the play. I haven't watched the film version on Disney Plus yet. So this is a little bit of me thinking back to when we had episode 36, where Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was talking about warning labels for films of a certain background or not a background, but more of a certain tone that is brought forward, right? Let's talk about the similarities, right? It was set in a time period where slavery was real, right? I'm assuming from, what you've told me, I will have to go back and watch this film. I have to go back and watch the film version on Disney Plus and make sure that this is correct. So I may come back with some corrections next week. You never know, right? Let's look at the differences, right? Gone with the Wind was extremely. It wasn't a diverse cast, right?
No.
It was a mostly white cast that was placed in that film versus on Hamilton was a more diverse cast showing a perspective of a time period, right? They're not in the same time period, but that's another difference, right? However, I would say that for Hamilton, from what I've heard and things that I have to go in and watch, there needs to be some understanding, and that's the word that I want to use for today. That's the word of the day, guys. Understanding for a time period and its accuracy / what we are creating for ourselves, right? I think that a lot of the times, for me, I'm not offended very easily, right? That's just me personally. But there are some out there that do get offended by things like this, and we have to start asking the question, really, is it too far? Me personally, I don't think it's too far. I'll go watch the film later, and I'll let you guys know if I'm upset, right? I'll go watch the film.
You will be. I don't think you will be.
I don't think so either. And I think that a lot of people need to come to that realization that, for the most part, don't get me wrong, film has been proven in itself, media has been proven in itself to be something that's so powerful that it could be weaponized, right? It could be so powerful that it could be weaponized in terms of propaganda and the works. So when it comes to this film this film version going too far, I don't believe that it is. I don't believe that is. I think that people need to draw the line in the sand and understand. Ooh, I'm starting to rhyme, y'all. Ooh, I'm on fire. All right. Need to draw the line in the sand and understand that this is art. And not only is it art, it is carefully placed art in the modern era.
Yes, and it's one of those unfortunate things that people have decided to go after when it is something that is so inspirational as well. There's a lot of people who have found lots of good, meaningful things in it and begun to apply it to their life. We've seen signs held up with quotes from the play in regards to some of the social justice issues that are happening. It also took a cast that's more diverse than what you normally would see on Broadway and provided a lot of good, meaningful work for these actors that normally don't really have a shot to do something this big and this trailblazing. And for me, why can't it be both things? Why can't it be an inspirational thing that means well, that people have found inspiration in, but also be a potentially, depending on who you ask, flawed look at our founding fathers? Why can't it be both?
No, I think that anytime that, especially now, anytime that you go into a time period piece, whether fiction or not, there's going to be some level of scrutiny based on the POV, right? On an individual's point of view. So, for example, you have films that are skewed from the actual truth, like when Quentin Tarantino creates something like Inglourious Bastards or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and it's being applauded for its work of art, where I don't believe that those films were even close to carefully placing some sort of diversity in the creation of the art versus Hamilton, right? And it comes back to the main fact, like, what is far enough? What is enough? Like, what how do we now as a society learn how to differentiate what is offensive versus what is happenstance or just part of history, right? Some part of history, even if it is fictional, where some of it's coming from a real place. Am I wrong? So is it that now we just create films that will not offend anybody?
Well, I think what we're potentially stepping into is that's not possible, regardless of what you do.
Yeah.
And this reminds me of another movie that came out in the past couple of years that also fudged a lot of history and turned a potentially not good person into a fun family musical, and that was Greatest Showman. I love Greatest Showman. I'm not here to quote unquote cancel Greatest Showman, or
Right.
I also found a lot of what that movie said to be inspirational. It does take bigger leaps, and I think Hamilton, the critics of Hamilton think that they are, but they turned a horrendous person into they turned a horrendous person in P.T. Barnum into this champion of the undervalued and the misunderstood. And I mean, the reality is he exploited all of them, but I'm not here to get into that. He's true. My point is he wasn't a good person.
Right.
And yet they made a fun family film starring Hugh Jackman that played in movie theaters forever and became a box office smash that nobody anticipated.
True.
I the overall idea kind of frustrates me because I think sometimes it is just people looking to be offended
Mm-hmm.
also.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, and this is something that I've always had a problem with, is that at some point we're going to reach. So let me tell you something. So I was listening to Joe Rogan's podcast, right? Um, and I'm not plugging for the dude, but sometimes like you gotta go listen to Joe Rogan talk sometimes. And he was saying in that episode, I can't remember which one it is because he has so many, but there comes a point where if you block or oppress as many voices as possible, you could get to a place where nothing comes out authentic, right? And that's not saying that. No, that's not what he said, but that's what I took from it, right? What it comes to basically is that if you suppress everything that is offensive to people, now you're going to create a society where people want to do what they shouldn't do and want to say what they shouldn't say, where we live in America, which is the land of the free and the home of the brave, and so many of those concepts are hypocrisized in our society right now, from the good and the bad. I could see, yes, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was talking about censoring films that were insensitive to, you know, the current state of affairs, right? I get that. I understand that. And I also understand where some people are saying, cancel Hamilton and that sort of stuff. I understand on I mean, that's basically on the same side, but one's a little bit more extreme. I think we as a human race need to understand the morality of things. That's the first part. And understand where we could take the good, take the good. Where there is bad, shed the bad. Now, all of that being said, there is a lot of barriers, boundaries, and levels of understanding that needs to be had when viewing or consuming art. And I will bring this back to many episodes ago when we talked about the Chappelle Show, and I was like, I love watching those things. A lot of those things are distasteful now. They're hilarious to me. I'm sorry if you don't like that, but I think that they're funny. Eddie Murphy's stand-ups, I think that they're funny. They're distasteful to the current climate of things, right? But like Tyler said many, many weeks ago, almost a year ago, almost, you have the choice as a consumer whether you're going to watch or not. I think that is where consumers need to come to that understanding. You have a choice. If Hamilton is offensive to you as an individual, you have the choice to click it off. There's no need to cancel something that is, and I will put it this way, based on the views of those who are criticizing it, borderline offensive. There's no need to shut everything down that is offensive, because then we will live in a world where it is over censored. There is bad stuff that happened back in the day. Someone takes an event or some sort of characteristic of our past, of our history, and paints a good light, a bad light, the truth. It's up to that person's point of view. It is your choice as a consumer whether you want to consume that content or not. And that's the basic line. That's the basic line.
One of the things that I just thought about too, which the creator of the show and writer Lin-Manuel Miranda did come out and say all criticisms are valid, so he understands where certain people are coming from. But the show doesn't really paint Hamilton in the best light. Like, it goes out of the way to show that he's not really a great person. So while it doesn't necessarily comment on the slavery issue, it's still unafraid to show the not so great aspect of his character.
The next thing that I wanted to point out was with what you just said, right? And kind of pull it around a little bit. When it comes down to a lot of these things, I think that people don't grasp the full, they don't go watch the show, right? So like, for example, I do not have a specific POV on Hamilton because I have not watched it. I haven't gone to the Broadway show. When it was here in the Pantages, I didn't go watch it. I don't know what this is about, so I don't have a point of view when it comes to this, right? A lot of people might come out and criticize me even and be like, well, how could you defend Hamilton? I'm not defending Hamilton. Don't get me wrong, right? What I am defending is the fact that people have a choice whether they want to consume this content or not. There's no need to go to full extremes and cancel a show because it doesn't share your specific point of view. And furthermore, for those who haven't watched it and are just headline reading and just skimming through the content to be like, oh, see, they didn't do that right there. Y'all need to stop and really get a full understanding. If there's something that you don't like about it, do some research. But no one wants to do the work. You know, no one wants to go into it and be like, oh, well, okay, this kind of makes sense. This doesn't make sense. And come up with a point of view of your own. And I think that the more that people try to educate themselves and try to understand different points of view. So, for example, if someone were to criticize me tomorrow about the fact that Hamilton should be canceled, I'll listen to it. I'll do my own research. I'll come down to my own conclusion, which usually falls into the realm of, if I don't like it, I won't watch it.
Yeah.
Quite simple.
That's very fair. And
if I don't like it,